All right. EMP got you to take a look at Splinterlands. You started out by just renting out cards, but then you decided you wanted to play the game a little bit. But this game is more complicated than people thought it was, right? So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down all the basics that you really need to know to become a good player in this game and show you two very quick resources that you can use to go ahead and make yourself a better player. So let's go ahead and get into the Splinterlands. All right, so here we are on the regular site. Now, one of the things you are going to want to take a quick look at and understand first are the leagues. Now, novice, you can kind of ignore. This is level 1 starter cards. You only have to win 4 matches to get out of novice, and then you'll be in bronze. But when you click on any leagues, they're going to show you your level caps. So you can have common cards at level 3, rare cards at level 2, epics at level 2, and legendaries at level 1. Do you understand? To be the most competitive in any league, you need to have the best cards for that league. So you need to try to have all your commons at 3, your rares at 2, your epics at 2, and your legendaries at 1. But there is an exception to the rule because when it comes to this, and this is understanding the differences between regular summoners and epic summoners. Now we're going to take a quick second to show you this because this might help you decide what summoners you want to purchase. So we're going to look at the rares and the epics. Legendaries, this doesn't apply to. They work the same as the rares, but cost more mana and do better when it comes to the way that they level cards. We only need to look at one team to make this example work, so we're going to take a look at the fire team. So if you look at either one of the rare summoners that are out there for the modern lineup, and you go to their stats, you'll see at level 2, what card level they're allowed to summon. At level 2, which would be the highest for bronze, a level 2 Tarsa can summon a level 3 common. That's the max level that you can go ahead and play in bronze normally. A level 2 rare she can summon, a level 2 epic, and a level 1 legendary. That's chalk down the set for bronze, right? So yeah, that's always what you're going to have to face, is what most people would think. That's not accurate, because if you have Skargor, and you go look at Skargor, who's allowed to be in bronze at a level 2 epic, this is a level 2. She's able to do 3 commons, which is the same, but she's able to do 3 level 3 rares. That's one level higher than the other summoner. Then that also is the same on epics, level 2s, and legendaries, but it can do level 3 rares. So what does that mean if you were to add in some of the monsters? Well, let's take a look at some of the monsters in the fire set. We'll go ahead and take a simple look at the living lava and his stats. If you had him at level 2, this is how he would look. But if you could play him at level 3, he would have 1 HP more. That 1 HP could be the difference between life and death. But more than that, if you're using Skargor, all of your rares can be at level 3 and have maybe one more life. Some of them might even get 1 more attack, which is a much more serious advantage. Here's a level 2, and here's a level 3. This one actually picks up a health 2. I was trying to find, I should have had an example handy of a rare that picks up a better ability. Let's look at this one. We'll just keep showing you. Basically, most of them are going to pick up a health, but when you find one that picks up an attack or a speed, that makes a ton of difference in a battle. And a lot of people overlook this because when they're on the bottoms and they're looking at the leagues and they look at bronze, they just see level limits, right? Level limits. Everything can only be 3, 2, 2, 1. No, it says summoner level limits. So if you're allowed to use the summoner, that summoner's ability is based on the level of cards that you're allowed to use. So where does this matter? This matters in bronze, and it also matters in gold. So if you're in these 2 leagues, having an epic summoner will let you do level 3 rares here, level 7 rares here. Diamond and Champion are both max level cards for everything. So it depends on if you're in these 2 leagues, then the epic summoners can let you play with higher level cards. If you are in silver, it just doesn't work out quite that way. They all end up being the same. So that's just a quick little thing I wanted to add in at the start of this video. Now let's go ahead and get into the next two things you're going to check out. Now, it might be kind of silly, but click on the how to play link. If you don't know how to play, this will give you something really quick. It'll help you understand how to break down a card. You need to know their mana cost. This is their attack. This is their speed. This is armor and health. These are abilities. But more than that, if you come down here, you know, everyone can probably figure that out, but you can get a look at every single ability and what they do. So Affliction, I'll go over these quickly without reading them because I know what they do, but you'll want to make sure that you learn all the abilities. You can't be a good card player if you don't know what your cards can do. Affliction gives you the chance to go ahead and land a affliction on a monster. An afflicted monster cannot be healed. Now, it can be cleansed, so do know it can be removed with a cleanse, but this has the ability for you to sometimes stop the other team from healing. Amplify is going to increase magic reflect and return fire and things like that. So if you have a monster with thorns or reflect arrows or reflect magic, they normally, for every 2 damage dealt to them, they deal 1 back. With this, if they were dealt 2 damage, they would deal 2 back. So it's normally rounded down, but with this, it's actually amplified on the reflects. And on thorns, instead of dealing 2 damage, that's a passive thing Thorns does, it does 1 more, so it does 3. Backfire is the ability to where if a monster is missed by a melee attack or an archer attack or a magic attack. Magic attacks can't usually miss, but some monsters can dodge magic. If they take 2 damage back. So an Amplify would help. I don't know if Amplify helps Backfire, actually. I have to double check on that. It's not listed here, but it might actually also support that. Blast damage is when a monster is going to do all of its damage to the first monster, and then it's going to do half damage rounded up to the second monster. So if it deals 3 damage, it deals 2 to the second monster. If it deals 5, it deals 3 to the second monster. If a blast radius hits a monster in a spot where there's one behind it and in front of it, this would be a snipering blast monster. It's going to damage 3 monsters. This is a very powerful ability. Blind increases the chance that monsters can miss. Bloodlust is the ability that every time a monster kills one, it's going to get a +1 extra attack. Camouflage monsters cannot be attacked unless they're in the front row. Close range allows ranged monsters to attack when they're up close. Cleanse removes negative status effects. Cripple reduces the maximum health of a monster and cannot be cleansed. So it can help prevent self-healing monsters from keeping themselves alive because you can reduce their life all the way down to 1. Death Blow is kind of an interesting ability. This was helped to bring in to stop people from playing just one strong monster, because if there is only one monster on the board, Death Blow does double damage to that monster. Demoralize is -1 attack to the opponent's team. Dispel removes positive spell effects from an opponent. Divine Shield blocks 1 attack, magic or melee or archery. It's just no damage from the very first time the monster is attacked. Dodge increases your chance to dodge. Double Strike allows a monster to attack twice per turn. Enrage makes it so that when you get hit, you get increased speed and increased melee damage if your monster is a melee monster. If you enrage a magic or archery monster, they only get faster. Flying increases your chance of dodging monsters who don't have flying. If the other monster has flying, it doesn't change. Force Field's kind of an interesting one. If you see this, if you were to get hit by 5 damage, instead it's going to be reduced down to 1. Fury is the newest ability. There are monsters in the game with the taunt ability, which we haven't covered yet, but taunt monsters say you have to kill me before you can hit anyone else. Well, Fury goes ahead and says that I'm going to deal double damage to that monster that taunted me because I'm so mad that I had to attack him. Giant Killer is the ability to do double damage to the bigger monsters in the game that cost 10 or more mana. The Halveling ability is only on the Halveling Archer, but it rounds down somebody's attack by half. Headwinds is -1 archery. Heal is a self-heal to the monster. Tank Heal heals the tank position. Immunity is immune to all status effects. Inspire is +1 melee to all of your melee monsters. Knockout is double damage on stunned monsters. Last Stand is a stat increase based on the stats of a monster if they are the last monster left. They get a lot stronger. It depends on the monster that is last standed. So do know that if you last stand a really weak monster, it gets a little bit stronger. If you last stand a strong monster, it gets a lot stronger. Life Leech is pretty self-explanatory. You gain HP when you do damage. Magic Reflect bounces back magic. Opportunity are monsters that targets the monsters with the absolute lowest health. These guys are trying to take smaller monsters out or possibly important support units. Oppress is double damage to monsters that don't have attack. So if you're playing any of those kind of shieldy, no attack tanks, this doubles double damage to them. Phase are the monsters that are able to dodge magic. Piercing goes through armor. So normally, if you were attacking with 5 and somebody has 1 armor, it would stop on that armor. But if they have piercing, then you'll go through that armor and still deal 4 damage to the monster. Poison. So poison is 2 damage at the start of every single turn to any monster that gets poisoned. Protect gives 2 armors to every monster on your side. The Reach ability allows a monster to attack from the second position as if they were in the first position. So it's usually your off-tank kind of card. Recharge, you skip a turn, but the next turn you do triple damage. So a monster with 2 damage would deal 6 damage when it attacks, but it would only attack every other turn. Not a lot of people like that, but it can be useful in some cases. Redemption is when a monster dies, it does 1 damage to every single monster. Reflection Shield is somebody who does not take damage from any damage that's bounced back at them or any blast damage. So they can only be hurt when they are directly struck by a monster. Repair repairs armor. Resurrect can bring a friendly monster back to life with 1 health. Retaliate is when a melee monster gets hit, they have a 50% chance actually to attack back. Return, if they have Retaliate. Return Fire bounces back arrows. Rust removes 2 armor, so it's the counter to Protect. Scattershot monsters attack random characters every turn, so you can kind of get around being taunted or just, have a little fun and hope they attack the right monster in the back row as opposed to the tank. Scavenger allows monsters with this ability, they gain 1 health. Shatter shatters armor, so you can have a guy with 1 attack hit a monster with 10 armor. It's going to break all the armor. Shield takes half damage from melee and half damage from archery. So if somebody has a really good melee tank, you really need magic to get through that. Silence reduces magic attacks by 1. Slow slows your enemy team by 1. Snare is a guarantee. If your monster has snare, it's guaranteed to hit flying monsters, so it negates that bonus they have of dodging your attack because they're flying, and then it removes flying from them. Kind of a funny thing is that if your monster has snare, it can hit the flying monster guaranteed on the first attack, but on the second attack, it can now miss if that other monster is a lot faster than it. So it's kind of a funny thing to see sometimes. Sneak monsters attack the last position instead of the first position. Snipers attack the first monster in the back row that is a mage or an archer. They will not target a off tank in the second position. They also cannot target a card with camouflage. Strengthen gives your whole team 1 HP. Stun stuns a monster for their next action. This can be kind of tricky. I think because of the way it's coded, if you stun them at the right time, sometimes it seems to skip 2 actions. Swiftness, it gives everyone +1 speed. Taunt makes the monsters attack that monster until it is dead before they can attack anyone else unless they have Scattershot. Thorns deals 2 damage back to any melee monster that hits them, only to melee damage though. Trample monsters, if they kill the first monster if they kill a monster with an attack and there's a monster behind that monster, then they attack that monster as well. This can usually is you kill the first position and hit the second position, but there's some unique monsters with Retaliate that can get hit by a monster in the middle and retaliate and kill that monster and then trample a monster behind it. So it's usually the first 2, but it's not always. Triage is a back row heal. So whatever monster has taken the most damage will get a heal in the back row. True Strike are monsters who can't miss. Void monsters take half damage from magic. Void armor makes it so that your armor does block magic. Normal armor does not block magic. And Weaken reduces 1 health for every enemy monster. That is all of the abilities, and that took a lot longer than I thought, but this is a deep dive into gameplay, so hopefully you saw those. We'll have this, I showed you how to get to this link so you can review them. Once you have them all memorized, it's a lot easier to pick your team and pick a competitive team and understand it. The next thing to remember is the battlefield. So the battlefield can have is going to have a summoner. This is your tank position. This is your off-tank reach monster position in theory. This is where you would put archers and mages. That's your normal kind of setup. Now, whenever you play a match, there's going to be a random rule set. Right here, it's showing you the regular rules of combat. The rules of combat and the random mana cap is going to be what makes you decide the most what team to use and what setup to try to use. I'm going to give you some quick examples of what's in generally good for different mana caps, and we'll go over the rule sets as well. But I'm going to quick drink of water before we get into that, because there are quite a lot of rule sets as well. All right. Let's go to the link of rule sets. This is to get to this one. Actually, you hit the help arrow. We'll do it really quick live. You go into gameplay, and then you go into list of games and rule sets. There's a lot of other things in the gameplay, but this is the other one that I'm going to go over right now in this kind of deep dive video of understanding how to play the game. Okay, so you can have one rule set on a game, or you can have 2 rule sets on a game. Make sure you pay attention to both of them, because if you ignore either of these, it can make you lose your match for sure. So this symbol right here is just a standard match. No modifiers. You can just go ahead and play your match. Now, just a quick general kind of idea. Low mana is usually dominated by the low 3-cost sneak monsters, or the green low-cost mages and archers. Those are the teams that's really blue, white, and green that dominate low mana currently in the modern meta. When you get into more medium mana ranges on a standard game, I'd say anything above like 18 to about 30. That's where Kelia and the blue team, Oblivion, it really gets mixed into there. You're going to be looking at the other rule set. There's no team that is the best. Once you get into like 30 or above, you have to really, really be careful of the life team doing the shield bearer taunt decks and try to counter those. And Jotun also starts to become very dangerous in that range too. But those are legendary summoners. If you don't have those, you just kind of ignore it, and you're going to kind of get a feel for, what cards have you leveled that can play in that. Once you get above like 40 to 50 to 60 mana, if you have dragons, you usually want to bring them into the fight. They're usually bigger cost cards, but that's just kind of a general feel. Okay, so aim true. This is where melee and ranged attacks will always hit their target. So this is something to note, that magic normally always hits, but it will also hit even if there's a phase monster. So don't use any kind of monsters in aim true where you're hoping that they're going to dodge. You don't want to do that. You don't want to build a lineup where you were trying to make it so that they would always miss. You don't want to play monsters that have the blind ability, because that's increased miss, but they can't miss. So in general here, you're looking for monsters maybe that have like the shield ability, so that they take half damage, or you're looking for void armor so that they can block magic and incoming attacks with their armor. These kind of things can be kind of helpful to have. You don't have to use faster monsters in this case. If there's a couple monsters that you like that are a little bit slower, at least they won't miss no matter what. But do know that speed always matters for who attacks first. So if they're slow, they better have some survivability. Otherwise, they just never get to attack. Armored up means everybody in the game is going to start with 2 armor. So you might want to use an ability, use a card with the rust ability to try to remove the armor from the other team. Or you could try to use cards on your side that add armor, and maybe you can use 2 of them, and now you'll start the game with 6 armor if they didn't remove any of them. Also, it gives armor to teams that wouldn't normally maybe have armor. So it brings certain like cards that have the repair skill become more playable now because everybody on the team has armor, as opposed to them only being able to repair one position, because repair can repair armor in any position. Back to the basics, they remove all abilities from the monsters. But summoner effects still happen. Back to the basics is usually dominated by either magic teams or Jotun teams. Or there is sometimes people play Lorena Shine because she has that divine shield for her whole team, so one time they get attacked is ignored. It kind of depends on the mana. Higher mana tends to go to Jotun. That can be countered a little bit now with the new life summoner, the epic one that bounces back arrows, but it's still dicey. His splash damage can get really, really ridiculous, and Jotun can do mages, and then the bouncing back arrows doesn't work because he can turn anybody's attack into a splash attack. Close range allows your ranged monsters attack from the front position. Normally when a ranged monster hits the front position, they can't attack anymore. In this mode, you can go ahead and set up a team with a lot of archers and just start pummeling people even when you get to the front. Earthquake makes it so that any monster not flying takes 2 damage. This is an interesting mode. You're expecting your opponent to play lots of flyers. You're going to want to play lots of flyers. There is a dragon card that makes it so that all cards on your team fly. That's one of the better cards for summoners for this rule set. A lot of people like to use it. If you don't have it, though, using monsters that have snare on their attack can help at least make it so the other people can't fly. And then using monsters with shield so they take half physical damage, only 1 per turn instead of 2, can be helpful. And using cards with armor, because the armor will go ahead and take that 2 physical damage, are ways to get around that. Equalizer is a rule set where all monsters have the same amount of health as the largest monster. Here, you normally want to play lots of cards, unless the mana is really high, that have really low health normally, because a monster with really low health usually has other stats that are really high, and now he'll get his health boosted theoretically, and all of a sudden he becomes really good. Also, any monster with life leech normally starts with pretty low HP. Sometimes here you can boost them up so they start with like 10 HP, and if they're gaining 2 per turn and they normally start with like 4, now all of a sudden that guy can end up with a lot of hit points. These are some of the key things to do in an equalizer match. Equal opportunity. So this is the one where all the monsters are going to be trying to hit the monster with the lowest amount of health. Normally in equal opportunity, you want to be fast, because since people are going to be targeting the weakest monsters and trying to kill them off, you want to be fast, and you want to make sure that you put some targets for them to go after first that you don't mind dying. So you're going to be wanting to put out some meat shields and then put out really, really quick cards. So hopefully your quick cards can attack him first. They have a mode called Even Stevens where you can only play even cards. You'll have to just kind of get a set, learn for the sets that have good even cards. Normally I would say that the Earth team, the green team has really good or even cards. The white team has really good even cards. Those are probably the 2 that I go to the most often in Even Stevens. The dragon team, not as much, but they do have a couple. So you can do like a dragon with a green or dragon with a white. And they have pretty good Even Stevens. Explosive weaponry makes it so that all monsters have blast. So you might want to play more characters that have reflection shields so they don't get hurt by blast. But definitely explosive weaponry, the team with the most speed usually wins, because basically everybody is doing blast damage. Sides are getting completely blown up, and if you're playing with hand grenades, you want to throw them first, right? Fog of War actually removes the snipe and sneak abilities, so that people can't try to be snipers, and they can't try to be sneak, but opportunity and scattershot still work. So normally with the fog of war, all the attacks are going to be hitting the first character, the tank. So you can play a really strong tank. But if you don't want your characters to hit the tank, then you play opportunity monsters and scattershot monsters, and then they'll still be able to kind of have a chance to hit the back row positions and try to get them. So normally I go opportunity monsters and scattershot in this mode. And I try to, and actually because I know other people are going to do opportunity monsters, I tend to like to play a taunt monster to make sure those opportunity monsters cannot go and attack whoever they want. Now, taunt doesn't stop scattershot, but scattershot is always a gamble. You don't know what you're going to hit, so sometimes you just hit the tank anyways. Healed out just means no healing. So any of the teams that require a lot of healing, notably the green team and the white team, are usually not the best. And the teams that can't heal anyways, like the death team, all of a sudden get a little better because the other teams can't heal and they can't. So now they're just equal. All monsters get knockout, heavy hitters. The advantage here is if you play a lot of cards with stun, every card also has heavy hitters where they do double damage to stunned monsters. So it's a good combo. Holy Protection is where every monster is going to start with a Divine Shield. Sometimes using monsters with the Redemption that when they die deal 1 damage to all the monsters is good in this mode, because if you set that monster up to die first, you can remove the Divine Shield from all of his characters at once, as opposed to every single character being able to block an attack before you can actually hurt them. Keep Your Distance is no melee monsters, so you're typically going to be using some of those no attack tanks that sit up in the front, and then you're going to be putting archers and mages in the back. It's an interesting setup. Mimosa is actually pretty good in this one, but at the same time, a lot of people like to use magic. So it just kind of depends. Little League are only monsters that cost 4 or less. This is usually dominated by those same teams that I told you are really good in low mana. That is the white team with Lorena, the blue team with Kelia doing sneak, either one of those two teams, or the green team using Mylor and using kind of their little magic people. Lost Legendaries is just no legendary cards. If you're a new player to the game, that's something you might not like this mode because you don't have any legendary cards. No Magic is no magic monsters. Melee Mayhem allows melee monsters to attack from every single position. So you could set up your team with nothing but tanks if you want. But if you know that's coming on the other side, you might go, okay, I'm just going to set my team up with a whole bunch of strong mages who are going to blow through tanks really quickly. There's some give and take in any rule set, right? You can either play to the rule set or play to counter the rule set. Noxious Fume, everybody starts out poisoned, but monsters with immunity can't be poisoned, so they won't have it, and monsters who have cleanse can remove the poison. This is usually dominated by Llama or Life. They have the most immunity monsters, so those are the two best teams, but I've seen Blue have a couple ways to win this game just by playing lots of heals in the back row just to keep people alive. Odd ones out is odds instead of evens. This one, maybe Kelia's can be pretty good in odds. So you got Blue, you have Jotun does pretty good in odds. Dragon does good in odds and evens, and then the Death team also has an okay lineup in the odds. Reverse speed is basically just now monsters with 1 speed go first. It also is reverse order for attacking. Normally, 2 monsters with the same speed are going to let the legendary monster attack first, then the epic, then the rare, then the common. Now 2 monsters with the same speed, the common is going to attack first, and then it's going to go up the other board. So if you want your team to be really fast, you want them to have 1 speed and be commons. Rise of the Commons says that there are going to be only common and rare monsters used in that battle, so now the epics and legendaries are taken off of the board. Again, newer players like that mode because they don't have to fight the strong cards they don't have. Silent Summoners, you can your summoner abilities go away, so you would maybe not if you normally use a summoner gives +1 magic, it won't give +1 magic anymore, so now maybe you can't use those weak mages. You have to use it, but use some different cards. Spreading Fury is all monsters have enraged. That can be pretty fun. Stampede is where the trample monsters that normally can only trample one time can actually trample through an entire team. And I've seen that happen where one monster kills the entire team. It can be pretty fun. Super Sneak is where all melee monsters get sneak. The fun thing about that is, again, you could do a full lineup of tanks and they'll all have the snake ability. But look out, somebody might see that coming and completely do a counter to a lineup like that. Taking sides removes neutral monsters. This just makes your team selection a little bit harder. Target practice makes everybody have snipers if they are ranged. Something kind of interesting here is if you play no ranged monsters for them to snipe, all of a sudden that all of those ranged people they played to be snipers have to attack the first position. I kind of counter this mode sometimes by playing a sneak lineup or a opportunity lineup, but I'm not the only person that does that. Unprotected is nobody's allowed to have armor. Up close and personal is now only melee monsters can be played. And weak magic is where all armor becomes void armor, so that you can actually play regular armored monsters and magic will hit their armor. Now, remember, you can get combinations in these. So you might get a game where every monster has the same amount of health and it's equal opportunity. Well, that means everybody's going to be attacking the very first monster on each team because everybody has equal health. But you can play a monster in the first position that like bounces back damage, and then on their team, if the last position monster attacks your monster in the front position and then you bounce damage back, well then all your other guys in the back are going to attack. Something to remember, equal opportunity, when it's added into a melee monster, it can now attack from any position on the field. So now you can play those big tanks that you can't you can stack up like 2 or 3 tanks in the first position and they'll all be attacking. Another combo that you might see is like no healing and poison. Then you have to play really high HP monsters because nobody's going to be able to heal and everybody's going to be poisoned. Or you have to play cleanses, so at least that you can cleanse that first position monster. But it becomes a game of like whose monsters aren't going to die first. Sometimes you'll see Super Sneak and no armor, and then you know that the sneak monsters can't be blocked by like a big tank with armor and stuff like that. But just know that whenever you do a match, you're going to see how the rules kind of affect it, and understand that's really going to decide what team you go with. On the other fact of it, when you get into the game, is when you do a battle, you only are going to have some teams available. So I'll do an example here. So right here, this is 18 mana. We only got monsters can attack from everywhere, and we got only death and dragon available. So we're going to go to create our team. Now we're only at 18 mana. 18 mana is pretty slow, and it's death monsters can attack from everywhere. Our melee monsters can, but it isn't that they have to. So there's some give and take there, and you can kind of decide on what you want to play. Now, I don't know what necessarily the best thing to do is, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Waka, and then what I'm going to start with here is I'm going to start with a shielded tank with a lot of armor, and then I'm going to put some mages behind him, one with a silence just in case they have a mage. I'm going to do another one here that has an armor, reflect, and affliction because I don't have a way to heal, so I want them to heal. And then I'm going to play this guy here. He's an opportunity monster that can attack anywhere. And then we're going to go here and we're going to put on the board Dr. Blight because he hides. And then we're going to throw in a Corpse Fiend because that's my 0 cost card. So I have a hidden card, a sniper card, a mage card, a Corpse Fiend up here to be kind of a target, an opportunity monster, and a crypt beetle. We'll go ahead and go into battle and we'll see how this goes. Okay, so I went against somebody. Even though melee monsters can attack from everywhere, he did not really go that either. He played a lot of archers in the back row. He protected himself from blast. He played a speed up and a slow, which could actually affect me because I didn't play any speed on my team. And I did not play anything to weaken archers. I did play a lot of magic, though, and his summoner is -1. So definitely he's going to get to attack first. He's going to have a speed advantage, and he also played a Corpse Fiend, so he's going to make my mages a lot weaker. Upon seeing this lineup, I think I'm going to lose this fight in my example, but that's fine because sometimes you don't pick the right thing. Obviously, I went double silence trying to make mages really weak, and playing a shielded tank, hoping that his half damage there. See, on the one side, he did live through all of their attacks. I did kill one of his characters. I did poison that character, but now he killed mine with thorns. I actually killed that one, so my mages will get stronger. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I can win this match. We'll have to see. That poison was kind of interesting. Didn't get a poison there. That would have been helpful. Let's see if we we missed him. What a miss. That was pretty rough. See, there's some RNG in this. But I actually am going to come through and win this fight. What ended up working there was my summoner's ability giving everyone poison. I got some important poison procs, and I was able to use my opportunity monster to remove some of those guys off the board that were going to be problematic for me. So I got myself a nice solid win in my example, and we're going to end our gameplay video there. Now, as you can see, once you get really good at this, you can make a team pretty quickly on the fly that can be pretty competitive. But in the beginning, you're going to be taking a little bit more time looking over your different abilities, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. Bye.